All right, I'll kick it over to Jeff for this next part.
Jeff?
Jeff, are you there?
All right.
I think...
Hey, Jeff, I think you're on mute.
Hi, I'm Jeremy Pierson, and you're on mute. I'm here with Kevin Howard and Pete Insall. We're going to be talking cybersecurity today. Kevin, tell us about yourself.
Yep, I'm Kevin Howard. I'm a solutions architect here at CompuNet. Been here going on 6 years now. I spend a lot of my time actually on the customer side of the house, so a lot of experience in the trenches in many areas of the business. Started in IT, moved into cyber, all the verticals you can think of. Just excited to be here today.
Awesome. Pete?
Yeah, Pete Insall, Cybersecurity Program Architect here at CompuNet. I've been here a little over 3 years. I've been in the consulting space for, I would say, 13 plus years. Prior to that, being in a customer side, had a lot of different roles I served in, IT, going up through security. I think most of us here probably in the 20 plus years in cybersecurity experience.
Going back a ways. Myself, Jeremy Pierson, I've been with CompuNet for about 11 years. I'm the director of cybersecurity, and I have the pleasure of working with these gentlemen every day. So we're going to talk about some of our customer challenges and some of the things we're doing in our cybersecurity services group. What are you guys working on lately?
Yeah, working on a lot of everything, really. It's quite the interesting industry these days. Most specifically, I think the unknown challenges are hitting our customers pretty hard right now. So a lot of assessments, where is the next iteration of technology stacks going? What does the consolidation of the market look like? There's a lot of challenges that our customers are facing where they're too busy putting out fires, and so they're calling on us to help consult and advise on what should we be focusing on, what are the biggest risk reductions, and what can we do to actually move the needle in the right direction from a maturity perspective.
Yeah, the last 5 years, we've seen a lot of consulting and advisory, and that's been a change for CompuNet. Historically, we've built a lot of infrastructure, we've helped with a lot of implementation, and now our customers have a technology stack and investment, and it seems like they're calling us more and more to optimize that and really fine-tune the investment versus just gear refresh expansion. Right. Pete's that align with kind of what you're seeing in the field?
Yeah, I mean, I spend most of my time on the assessment side, and I'd say the policy and the government's risk and compliance side, helping customers, really deal with a lot of the compliance burdens that are out there. I mean, the compliance environment has changed. It keeps evolving over time. They're dealing with more challenges, more regulations. Part of the challenge that I see is their policies, while they like to buy technology, their policies are not keeping up and they're not enforcing what they have in policy. So part of this is evolving what they're dealing with, such as AI, for example, dealing with the challenges and ensuring they have adequate policy there, ensuring how that translates to regulatory compliance, some of the challenges there, and the risks that they face.
Yeah, our assessments game really took a giant leap forward when you joined 3 years ago. We really started getting more involved in business conversations. And to your point, it's interesting as a technology company how we sit in the crossroads of technology adoption that tends to be driven by the business's ability to consume and steer their policies around how they use that technology. Mm-hmm. So, Kevin, does that align with what you're seeing with your customers?
Yeah, a lot of business conversations around risk, governance, same thing. Really, how does it translate to the tech stacks that they're acquiring? So we have a lot of conversations around, is this the right product for my organization? Not, is this the best product on the market? And so I think we're entering a phase of there's table stakes across the board for tech stacks. Everyone wants to go ecosystem, but really it's what is going to be most beneficial operationally for my organization. If I buy the best product on the market, but I can't really adopt it or implement it because I don't have this trained staff, then it does me no good. The return on investment's not there. So we spend a lot of time actually analyzing what is the existing need of the business, where is the business going, and which technology fits that organization the best. And that's not always the easiest thing to uncover, especially for cybersecurity leaders, IT leaders. They're tasked with, give me a budget, give me a project, plug the holes. And so they have to translate these risk and regulatory conversations to which tech products actually solve those needs. And that's a very, very daunting task. So having the ability to reach out to us and help strategize and advise on where are we seeing the industry go, where are we seeing the different vendors go and the landscape, how it's changing. We can help build a roadmap to identify, okay, here's your 2-year, 3-year roadmap, and here's about the budget that you might need to get there. And the skill sets, because we buy technology, but are we really putting in headcount to help manage that technology? Because once we implement it, are we moving on to the next project, or are we operationalizing it? And I think that operational phase is what we're forgetting a lot of times.
Yeah, as much as I love cybersecurity, it's amazing how the conversation has shifted around risk, risk management, risk mitigation, and right-sizing solutions to address the risk. Years ago, that was not a very sexy topic, and now it seems like it's a fundamental thing to address as we're pitching new technologies and talking about how the customers are going to optimize and tune these things. The cyber widgetry is still pretty fun, but we have to right-size it. To your point, it's very contextual because every customer has a different risk profile and risk acceptance based on their industry and the size of the organization, their cybersecurity maturity.
Customers, the product landscape has changed where we're not getting phone calls for a particular product. We're getting phone calls for a particular problem.
Right.
And they're asking us to help solve it, not just implement the product that they've already selected. And that's a huge shift in the market.
I think another thing that's interesting is, you spoke about the platform discussion. What's interesting is you look at our vendor landscape, and everybody's a platform now, right? Used to be we would buy based on best of breed. That was the philosophy. We've seen a platform approach, but the problem is there's this misunderstanding that, I just buy a platform. Well, that's actually not the case. You will have many platforms in your environment because every vendor is a platform, and they solve problems differently, and they have different capabilities. So we're now helping customers navigate the platform model and choose amongst platforms. And there's no longer a case that there's just going to be a single solution, right? Or a single vendor, if you will. So we're seeing that, but everybody is navigating this space. Identity, endpoint, data security, network security, they're all trying to encompass all of those domains.
And that's a real difficult conversation to have because we're now talking about overlapping technologies, consolidation in the market. Mm-hmm. And so it's not just here is a particular vertical in IT or cyber, I need to go solve a BCDR problem, because it has a domino effect of everything else in your business. If you go buy a platform and all of a sudden it doesn't integrate with your current tech stack, you now have to go buy a secondary tool to supplement it. And this is where you get this overlap of you have some platform plays that are moving, let's say left, other platforms that are moving right, and they overlap in the middle. So if you have an overlapping feature, which one do you use for which platform? And with the acquisition and the consolidation of the market, everyone's buying everybody right now. It's really hard to understand, okay, this company has acquired this new technology that I think will work really well, but I already have that in an existing tech stack. So am I now double paying? Which one do I get rid of? So tool rationalization exercises have become very common.
Yeah. And Pete, I'm interested in your opinion on this from the assessments perspective, but as I talk with cybersecurity leaders and IT leaders, many of them are at an in-between stage of adoption. Maybe there's a cloud vision, but they're in a hybrid environment, or there's an identity vision with a single IDP, but they're spread across multiple right now. And so what we seem to be bumping into is the ideal state, which is a few years out and, sort of promised around this platform story, but the in-between state or the transition state is a bit painful and quite hybrid and has an expansive attack surface. That's what I'm seeing from the leadership lens. Is that what you're seeing in assessments?
Yeah. Well, an interesting thing as we look at our technology adoption side, it's unfortunate to see people buy a product and they utilize 10% of its capabilities, and unfortunately, we're still seeing configuration management challenges. Right? People just aren't maximizing the value in the security tools and the tools that they own.
Sure.
And that's part of the problem that leads them down this alternate path of, I need to buy another solution because clearly the other one wasn't working for me, when simply this could have been looked at through the lens of, what have you done with the solution you currently own? How are you maximizing its capabilities or using it to its full potential? But then as we get into tool rationalization, and we've kind of talked about this a little bit, is there's aspects of this that come into the operational side, like, do I enjoy working with this tool? Is
Yeah.
it problematic just to use it operationally, right? Or that could be lack of training. There's so many other variables. And so when we look at tools rationalization, we need to look at it through the end user model as well, the admin of the tool, the user of the tool,
Sure.
the end byproduct of the tool. What challenges are you seeing? So we've started moving into what I would call a rating system, if you will, for just much like we have with Yelp and other rating systems, to rate how would you rate this tool in your environment, not just what problems does it solve, what risk was it there to address, what do you like the tool? Like, is it easy to use? Is the vendor easy to work with? So
Yeah, the supportability of the product is also
Exactly.
very huge. You can enjoy working with the vendor, but if their support team is not supporting your team,
Yep.
it makes it very difficult to justify continually spending and renewing. And that's just one of the many variables that we have to assess. And so the conversation is shifting from, is this best, to, is this operationally valuable, but then also, is this company an acquisition target? Right? Because if I go and invest a lot of time and resources to get this onboarded into my infrastructure and they get acquired, now all of a sudden we see this huge shift in, I'm now working with a new company, a new vendor. And that's a lot of the unknown, unforeseen things that we have coming down the pipe of, we're trying to consolidate the market. There's a lot of vendors out there. There's a lot of startups. They're going to be acquired. And we've already seen this where an acquiring entity has to increase costs because they didn't understand the underlying operational cost of running that business. And so our customers feel the pain because they think they have a really good product for a really good price. It gets acquired. Prices now jump.
Yeah, that equation changes.
And all of a sudden, your predictable growth model of your IT projects or your security spend is no longer predictable. It's now, I thought this was going to be a standard renewal. It got acquired. I now have to go increase my budget or take it from somewhere because we didn't budget for that. That's another common thing that happens. And so we're getting a lot more calls around validating the vendor's supportability, but also risk of the stability of that business. And that's a thing that we haven't really had to deal with in the past.
Yeah, the last 36 months has been, certainly it seems like it felt like acceleration around acquisitions and consolidation. And Pete, to your early point, the platform story has driven a lot of change. Which platforms are you seeing customers being excited about? Which platforms are you guys excited about?
Well, with the consolidation in the market, I mean, you're seeing some emergence of several clear leaders, I would think, that have invested a lot of different areas and to try to fill out the various domains for which they have competency in. I mean, Palo Alto, Cisco, CrowdStrike, those are three that I see. Man, Microsoft, I don't want to forget Microsoft. They're all doubling down across the board in all different domain areas of coverage. Fully in cloud, fully in identity, data security, all the above. I just see more consolidation. And there's some other outliers and some other platform players as well. I just see them as I would say, true leaders in the space.
Yeah, and those vendors are very interesting because they are continuing to acquire. They're continuing to grow. And I would say, while in many areas of their businesses they are direct competitors, they are also not in many other areas of their business.
Yeah, not a perfect overlap of technologies.
And so that creates a huge challenge for us, because if you're an organization that has a particular firewall vendor that is now an ecosystem, are you adopting all of their products? And if you're not, what are you not getting out of that? Because a lot of the firewall and EDR vendors are merging together to create an ecosystem around SIEM and as well. So all of that analytic and correlation data ends up in the same platform. Well, if you need to do any sort of enrichment, now you're bringing in a third party. Well, what if that platform has that add-on, or they acquire that, like a cloud offering? I think DLP, or data security, also DSPM, data security posture management, is probably the biggest one I'm running into right now, where there are many vendors in many verticals all playing the data security game. Some at the backup level, right? So all of your data center backup tools say, hey, we can do data security there. Well, they don't see in the packet flow. So now we have our network appliances doing data security, but they're not on the endpoint. So now we have endpoint appliances doing It's data security and email. And so what's happening is you take a data security problem and you try and go find a product for DLP or DSPM. There's not one that will solve data security across your entire organization. And this is where we're starting to see this breakdown of, I need a product, I have a project with a budget, but now it requires 3 tools to complete and satisfy the scope of that project. And so that's becoming a very difficult conversation to have.
Well, I love that you brought up data security, because that topic, DLP obviously has been around for a very long time, and we've argued the efficacy of this in the past.
We gave up and we brought it back.
Web gateway, endpoint firewall, where do you want to put your DLP engine and how effective is it? And so now that conversation's back again, but AI is kind of in the driver's seat in terms of how fast the data can be consumed and shared, whether you'd like it to be or not. So you just brought up, all these different amazing technical choke points that we can put in, these different tool sets, but they're all dependent on a business wrapping their arms around their data governance policy, their data classification, and just sort of understanding what that footprint looks like. When you're talking with customers, are you guys seeing mature customers? Are you seeing a lot of challenges around data governance?
I think you hit it on the head. Data classification is step 1, right, in data governance. If you don't have a policy to even adhere to, what are you going to protect? And I don't think we've even solved the data classification problem just yet. And so we can't even select a tool in the appropriate choke point if we don't know what data we have or what data we are creating through AI, right? So we can use AI in many different forms. One for discovery, but also we're seeing a lot of organizations use AI to generate and create data, which opens up a whole new realm of, okay, who has access to that? Which models have access to that? Yep. So we have a couple of different maturities of customers where some are still trying to solve the classification problem. Others are saying, we've jumped into AI, I'm trying to rein it in, but I have no visibility into where any of this data is. And it comes back to the same problem of, if you don't know what data you have, where you have it, you can't even wrap a governance and compliance project around it.
Yep.
And so we get brought into the conversation so early that we have to take a step back and say, hey, let us help you define a governance program first before we go find the tools. The reality is a lot of customers are either not ready for that, haven't budgeted for that, or have a regulatory requirement that it needs to be solved in a matter of 3 months. And the reality is it's just not possible given the landscape that we're in today. I don't know if you've seen the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. On that note too, I hate to say it, through the series of number of assessments, very few customers have any kind of mature data classification, handling, encryption, disposal, all the above policies around that, around how they're going to deal with this. Most of the time it's driven by, I need to create a policy because I was asked to create a policy for this. Unfortunately, it doesn't take into account all the considerations around that. So the other piece too is, as we talked about, data with unstructured data and structured data. The challenge is, of course, like most customers, if they're in cloud or on-prem hybrid environments, they might have a handle on it in one particular environment, but they're lacking in another. But all data needs to be looked at. We can't just look at it in one place only and address it only in one location and address it by one form of creation, right? So I would say that there's some catch-up happening in that area, and so people are needing more assistance in establishing this and knowing what the right thing to do is.
And we're still educating IT directors and leadership on this challenge. When the real challenge is going to come when we have to educate the end user, right? We've seen many different presentations, red team engagements, and Black Hat was a great example of this, where there are many organizations out there that have found loopholes in all of these AI chatbots, these LLM models, where if you just sync it with your OneDrive or your Google Drive, you've given it access. And if someone sends you an email with embedded malware inside of a document and your LLM is now scraping that, your email, just by receiving that, is now backdooring your environment. So there's so many unknowns that we need to get past the classification stage just so we can get to the user awareness stage, because the users, they're just trying to do their job. They're trying to adopt AI to increase, whatever the business, workflow or whatever it is. And in reality, they're inadvertently opening up more doors. And I see a lot of pen test companies who are really enjoying this right now because they say it's like, hey, it's the 90s are back. Firewalls are not a thing. And the reality is that's very true, is we have now allowed our end users so much access. And I know that a lot of organizations want to protect AI chatbots, but the reality is we don't even know what the risks are going to be just yet. We just know what we've already uncovered and discovered today. And so to go say that this is a product or a solution for this problem when we really haven't fully comprehended what the problem is, I think is doing a disservice to the community and the industry. And really, I don't fault the IT directors or the security directors at all, because they're just having to answer to the board or the C-suite. And the reality is there's no good answer for this just yet.
Do you guys think it's fair to say that there's an ever widening gap between the most mature cybersecurity organizations and the least mature?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a chasm. So it just keeps getting wider. And it has to do with the expertise and the resources on those smaller, mature, those less mature clients. They're not able to invest, and they're not able to attain the right kind of talent as well in their organization. The more mature organizations, they were already partly down this path, and they were increasing the talent, and they're harvesting and using AI in a more mature manner, and they're using that, and they've got practices in place. But the smaller clients, or the less mature ones, they're still dealing with this, and they're not ahead of the curve, and they're just struggling to keep their head above water, I think.
Yeah.
It feels like the stakes are a little bit higher for
Yeah.
the less mature organizations right now.
Yep.
And whether it's a cybersecurity incident, a data exposure, some unfortunate combination thereof, seems like the stakes are ever higher for those organizations.
And it's going to continue to grow. And I think where we're at now is the two paths I see forming right now is the lower maturity organization that is trying to play whack-a-mole, trying to solve the problems, plug the holes. They're not investing in budgeting for growth. They're trying to use AI to be more efficient, to save on revenue or whatever the case, expenses, whatever the case may be. The more mature organizations, they're adopting a growth strategy. They know this is coming. They know they need more resources. So even though they're buying more efficient technology, it's going to require better trained individuals to run that technology, more individuals to really understand and grasp where are we headed with AI. And so if you can get that leadership buy-in, C-suite, board, et cetera, and you can translate the risk to them, we see that funding is being unlocked for those organizations that say, we have an AI strategy, we want to adopt AI, but we know that it comes with security concerns. So we also need to grow our security organization to make sure that we're doing it the right way. And that gap is so huge right now that if you see tired and frustrated, department admins, department senior directors, they're struggling to translate that need and that risk to the business, and that's only putting them further behind.
Yeah, it feels, talking with IT leaders, it feels like if we're not directly addressing a risk and helping mature the business, the technology spend is that much harder to go solve for.
And I think that's the giant misconception right now. The giant misconception is that you spend $1 for X% risk reduction. That's not really the case anymore. It's a program. So the dollar for risk reduction is not a tool conversation. It's a program conversation.
Yeah.
And we need to keep pushing that narrative.
Absolutely.
Security ROI.
Not project specific. It's yes, we have this need. We know that there's a gap right here, but it is part of a larger program of projects. That's what I think we do a really good job of, is understanding the needs of the business by vertical based on our assessments, and then helping derive a multi-year program that is not just here's everything you need to check off over the next few years to be secure, right? That's not going to happen. Here is the low-hanging fruit that you might be able to do for free or low cost. Here are the minimum stakes that you need because we're seeing the most attack vectors coming from this particular category, and you haven't even addressed that yet. And then we grow into, okay, here's a more mature state. And so I love being involved in multi-year roadmap and strategy conversations because I think it's the most impactful for our customers.
And on that note, I think I'd really like to just sort of wind the conversation down talking about what you guys are most excited to go solve with customers in 2026. I've got some ideas myself, but Pete, do you have anything's top of mind?
I would say, on our earlier topic, people, I think, are still trying to wrap their head around the tools conversation, right? No matter what, at the end of the day, that's why we have all these conferences. The conferences are there with vendors, with tools, and there's many different booths. At the end of the day, people are still looking for an answer on how do I maximize the security that I'm getting? How do I integrate these things together? Where should I go? What should I be doing? It's really a lot of that tools conversation is part of what we do, but the assessment piece combined with the policy piece, combined with the tools piece, that's really what I love working with, is helping them identify the right architecture, the right security architecture, and how to leverage these tools and the integrations effectively and leverage platforms, plural, effectively. Because at the end of the day, that's a big piece of it. But I think moving forward, there's so many other areas working with new compliance requirements, new controls, frameworks that come out. There's evolutions of the controls frameworks. And so helping customers adopt those effectively, maximize their security posture and what they have. Those are the things that excite me the most.
Fantastic. Kevin, how about you?
I think what I'm looking forward to most for the next few years really is operationalizing existing tech stacks. I love growing, I love new products, but really I love understanding what is an organization invested in today, what can they leverage that they either haven't configured or didn't really know was an integration, and how can we operationalize the tech stack that they have in their environment today to have the best risk reduction out of the gate, right? No cost, no additional tools, what can we do today? And then I love building the strategy for, okay, here is what your organization values. Here's where you're headed, which product tech stack you maybe have adopted the most of. Here's the landscape that's changing. So maybe you need to build a multi-year strategy to move away from that product stack because right now packets are flowing different. Attacks are coming in a little bit differently. And so what you have invested in heavily in the past may not be advantageous to continue to invest in the future. So I really love the operationalization of that and really adopting the, keeping an eye on new technologies, new roadmaps, where are the acquisitions going, and how do these products all overlap with each other? Because that Venn diagram is becoming very nasty. And if I can help identify and navigate those waters, I think I'm going to really enjoy the next few years of making sure that we help mature those organizations.
Fantastic. And for me, I'll keep it short and sweet. I'm just very excited to continue to grow our cybersecurity services team, to be able to bring more service offerings, more assessment types, and more engineering capabilities out to our customers. It's been a great ride the last few years as we've built and grown this team out, and we look forward to scaling it even further. So with that, I'll go ahead and wind us down for the day. But thanks for the time, gentlemen. Appreciate you being here.
Thanks.
Thank you.